What does Pico have in store for us this year? Come back after the titles and find out. Hey everybody, Anthony Dodge, the Mile Train Outsider, the American Outsider. It is January, which means it's the new tradition of all the main German railway companies releasing their catalogs. And first I have found was released yesterday, although I didn't notice it until this morning, is Piko, as you can see on the page here. So let's take, hopefully, a very quick look at what Piko is offering as new. Let's get into it. We'll look at it. So we'll skip through some of the pages here and go straight to, here's one of their big announcements. In many cases, they only have computer-aided diagrams because prototypes haven't been built yet. But here you can see this is a class 62, a BR62, and they're releasing it in both a West German on the left and East German on the right variation. You can look at the flags right below the picture. And again, you see they're going to make this in a basic version, potentially analog version, then a DC 2-rail digital version, and then the AC / 3-rail digital version. And you can see some of the prices there. But that's one of the big ones. And Neuform, that means this is a complete new construction. They may have released BR62s before, but this is complete new construction. That's what that Form Neu means. Now, usually they do release an English version of the catalog, but hey, you're looking at the pictures, and hopefully I can fill in the rest. All right, over on the left on this side, we have a new construction version of the BR249. Now, as you know, I just got one. So Märklin beat Piko to the punch here. That's the same train. That's the Deutsche Bahn livery, the BR249, that I got last week, a few days after Christmas. And then next to it, you see the same thing, but for a private company, and therefore it's classified as BR248. So both Piko and Märklin earlier released a Deutsche Bahn version and then a private company version, but they've released it in a separate private company than the RP Rail Systems that Märklin did. All right, some more prototypes. These are all variations of the Class 03 steam locomotive. A German version, a Polish version. The German version is Era 2 and Era 3. Down below, you can see that. So there's two German versions. Then there's a Polish version, which is labeled as a PM2. But if you look at it, and even in the instructions here, they're saying it's basically the Polish variation of a Class 3 locomotive. Again, CAD images here, so hard to tell you just how great it's going to be. Piko does make sharp-looking models. This is their expert line, which means it's going to be highly detailed, very, very sharp. All right, and then again, I think this is a case where they rush out these too early because they're just showing images, pictures of what they're going to produce, but not models, or in this case, even CAD. Now, again, it used to be that these companies released these catalogs around the time of the International Toy Fair, which is in late January, early February. But now everybody's in a race to beat each other to the punch and getting them out very quickly around New Year's. So in this case, Piko has a Class 144, as it was known in West Germany, this electric locomotive, or in East Germany, where it was the E44, the electric 44. So that DR is Deutsche Reichsbahn, but it's East Germany. The DDR, as we said in German, or the East Germany, or DDR, as it was known in English. And here is a Class 1000 for the Netherlands, RH1000, Era 3 electric locomotive. And again, for those who don't know, Era 3 is right after World War II up until around, give or take a couple of years, the late 60s, early 70s. So around, 1945 to about 1968, 1970, somewhere in that era. It's not specific because, of course, things are transitional. There's not a year where everything suddenly changes. It's over a period of years. So you would have seen this running in the 50s, 60s, into the 70s, maybe. But a Dutch Class 1000 electric locomotive. And here is all new construction from Neu. All new construction for the Polish Railway. So, Mark, you like Polish? Here's a new cool one. And pricing's not terrible at all for a Piko model. But this is era 6. So you would see this from the late 80s, although era 6 is really anything post 2000. But even as I'm reading this, it talks about that it was based on a design from the 1980s. But this is all new. It's going to be the Plus X 22 decoder. So in the digital form. So very sharp. All right, now a whole slew of them. So we got a Class 101, Private Company 101, a Charter. So that's a Class 101 over there on the left in blue. Very sharp, at least the actual livery. And then here's a classic. If you're new to the model train world, here's a classic. It is a Class 103 from Era 4, which again would be the late 60s, early 70s into the mid 80s. This is the classic livery of one of the classic German electric locomotives, the 103. This would be, it doesn't say it, but that's sort of the Rheingold, the Trans-Europe Express, the TEE or TEE train, TEE train. So somebody, I think it was Rick at Well Chuffed Railways had just picked up some Rheingold TEE cars. There's your locomotive. Now, this is released consistently. That's why this is not listed as new construction or anything else. This is just one of they're bringing it back. They're reissuing it. 103s get released by at least one company every year. It is one of the most common locomotives. All right, next to it, a Class 115, which is a locomotive that I always considered older, but they are running now in Germany. I saw one this past year in Germany. So this is one I'm tempted to pick up, and probably the first one I'm tempted to pick up. But so the Class 115. Down below, a Class 477, which looks very similar to the Class 115 you see up above. So it just might be that in this nomenclature, it has a different running, but you'll notice that says Era 3. So you got one is Era 6 and one is Era 3, but they really look to be the same locomotive. All right, next to that, a Class 111. There's still a couple of those running. They have been recalled from service along with the 120s, but there are some 111s running, and I am looking for a 111. Well, there's one right there. And right next to it, a previous generation. So the one in the middle is the current era, Era 6, which I love. I love how that's all lit up. Very nice. And then right next to it, I kind of like that one, the white with the red stripe there. So let's just keep going. All right, again, photographs mean they don't even have CAD images yet, but odds are most of these trains, they've already got models out, and they're just retooling them and re-releasing them. So we have a Class E17 from Germany, Era 3. Again, Era 3 is post-war up until around 1970, give or take. Now, here's another one, a BR-140, the Bayernbahn, the Bavarian Railway. They call it an Era 6. This is, if I remember correctly, and I'm sure at least 3 people I know will correct me, this is kind of a heritage runner now. It's actually an older era locomotive, but it's still out there running. It's a Class 140, the progenitor of the 141, the 145s, the 142s, 146.2, which I have a couple of models of. And next to it, a 181-2. I have a 181-2 in Deutsche Bahn livery of now, Era 6, but there's the Era 4 ocean blue and beige livery. On the bottom, we've got a Class 147. I've got one of those from Maryland. The Class 147 is replacing the 146s, as can be done. It's got the famous cardboard wall. It's not really cardboard. That's how some of us describe it. Corrugated side paneling, which from my understanding is just they took an exterior panel off the 146 to reveal that inner paneling. So there it is. But that is a new locomotive that is doing passenger traffic, regional passenger traffic. Next to it, the Class 152. I'm actually looking for a 152, but that's not the one I want. That's Era 5 ITL. And then next to it, a Class 141. So you have a 140, but there's a 141 Era 4. See, that original Class 140, I think, would have been Era 3. We go on because it's going to take forever. All right, so going across the top, we have a Danish Class 186 passenger hauler. 186s I always associate as, in Germany, as freight haulers, but in the Netherlands, that is clearly hauling passengers. Next to it, we have an Italian Class 483, the Merck Italia, which I believe is freight Italy, Italian state freight train, Era 6, current era right now. And then next to that, more Polish. So again, my friend Mark at Model Railway Fantasia. I know there's more Polish coming in this because I kind of perused the catalog before I started this video. But another Polish modern era, Class E483. So you can see, now are they all related the way they're put there? Down at the bottom, you can see a Class 484 for Switzerland. A Class 241 for Sweden, and a Class 186 for Belgium. And really, they do all kind of look alike, so they're probably all the same class, just they get different nomenclature for certain countries. So the same locomotive, different countries, different liveries. We continue on, a Class 187. I actually have a Class 187. That is for a private company, Germany. Then you have a Czech Class 388, which looks a little bit like a Taurus, but I know it's not. But BR 388 RegioJet. So maybe it is a Taurus. That's Czech Republic. That's a cool one. I actually saw Rocco had a model of that last year because I saw it at a shop in Germany. Thought it was kind of cool looking. We got a Class 193. That's your Vectron for Germany. Vectrons will always be Era 6. Down along the bottom, we got a Swiss 66 unit, modern era. And then I really like this Class 187 in black for the MRCE. I've got a couple of MRCE based locomotives, but I really like that one a lot for Germany. And then for Austria, a Class 87 for the LTE firm. Again, very sharp liveries, but I'm just not shopping for those, but I'm letting you look at them. All right, here we have quite a few Vectrons. So we got a Swiss Vectron for SBB, the Swiss National Railways. Then we've got a Austrian private company. I do not believe that is OBB. I could be wrong, but I think that's a private company, the CCCO. The ECCO, ECO. Then we've got an Italian Vectron, which is called the Class 191 there. Down below, we've got a German, and Märklin released that model with that livery a couple of years ago. It's celebrating the electronics. Whoops, sorry, I didn't want to, some of these you almost want to zoom in because it's kind of hard to see, but I'm trying to do a quick video. There we have a Polish Vectron, the PKP Cargo. If ever you see PKP, that's the Polish National Railway. And there is clearly a true Austrian Federal Railways, the ÖBB, the Österreichisches Bundesbahn, which they call the 1293. But it's all the Class 193 Vectron as I know it. All right, zooming right along. Oh, now we're getting into some older styles. There are people that they love these styles. Other people, they're kind of funky or wild, but whatever it is. So we got an Austrian 1018 from Era 3. We've got a Italian E42D8 from Era 3. And then the picture of another one, which apparently will have a different livery. I believe FS is the Italian State Railway nomenclature, FS. So a class 428, but clearly they're going to, and they're calling it a form variante, which means they've already released this model. This will just be different liveries. So Neu form is new construction. It's a completely new molding. And then form variante means that it's a previously released model with a new livery. Or they've changed some detail on it to match a certain nationality, electrical system, what have you. All right, down below you've got a CAD drawing of a class 1010 from Austria, Era 10, and then another redo, very common, E94 from Germany from Era 3, and next to that, a Swiss, their own version of the Trans-Europa Express locomotive, the 133, the 10033, Era 4. All right, another Dutch locomotive, Era 4, the Class 1100. Right next to that, a Polish Era 6. Looks like it is a private company. Very sharp. And another Polish from Era 4 of the Class EP08. And trust me, most of you already know. Many of these classes, I don't know. And by the way, I'm not pointing it out, but up above you can see what quarters they're expecting to release these. So you have quarter 3, 2024, quarter 2, 2024, how soon you can expect them. And obviously it's groups of 3 months, but usually if something says quarter 1, it might show up if it's already in production in January, otherwise February, March, April. And some of the ones that say coming out in quarter 4, you might not see until 2025. Things get delayed and pushed back. All right, along the bottom, we have another Polish. I told you, Mark, lots of Polish. I know you like your Polish railways. You're moving to Poland. You've picked up some cool German and Polish stuff, but almost 5 of the 6 on this page are Polish. So take your look at them, and we'll go on. Class ET21s, both with the PKP from Era 6, although they're definitely older models. And then it looks like CTL, which would be a private company. And then an ET22 from an earlier era, Era 5, which, again, is mid-80s to the early 2000s. All right, here we go. We got a Czech Class 489. That's really cool. Now, that's Era 3, but that's a very cool livery, even going back to Era 3, when the Czech railways, still under communist rule, had more of a red and yellow, the communist red and gold themes. Right next to it, that's a monster locomotive. That is a Slovakian modern era. There's a lot that I like about that locomotive as a Slovakian, the Class 240, the Lamanatka Lokotrans. So I assume that's a private company, because it's not the Slovakian State Railway. And another Czech, a Class 242, which is very similar to that 240. Obviously, a 240, 242, very similar. Another Czech 242, but from right after Czech independence, Era 5, the CSD, in the red and gold livery. All right, we have a couple of Hungarian models, the Class V43 in a couple of different liveries. Both of them are listed as state railways. MAV is the Hungarian State Railway logo name. Magyar, blah, blah, blah. I know the M is Magyar, which is what the Hungarians call themselves, the Magyars. All right, now, this next few pages, this is something, it's the first time I've seen it specifically advertised. I don't know if it's entirely new, but this is the first catalog I've seen it in. And I even went back to 2023 and 2022's catalog, and they did not have it set up like this. Those of you who follow me, American, know American has what's called the MHI, the American Handlers Initiative, the American Dealers Initiative. If you are a shop that is a licensed seller of American goods and you belong to their American Dealers Initiative, there are certain locos in stock the company will make that only you can sell. It cannot be sold by shops that are not part of the deal. The thing is, you have to agree to buy so many, and you have to agree to sell them at suggested retail prices and not the discount prices. So, for example, my shop, Model Bond Shop Lipa, does not sell MHI stock from American. Well, this is now the Piko version of it. So if it's been around, they apparently are really pimping it big time because this is an all new setup. So these are only available from people that are part of the Piko dealers. They call it the Piko Shop System Händler, the Piko Shop System dealers. So again, you have to be part of this program to sell these locomotives. We got a gorgeous class BR101, the Europa. So this is cross. It'll have 3 to 4, it looks like 2 pantographs there, maybe 3. Very, very cool. And they're also advertising the new Piko Train Sound, their new sound system they're upgrading with. They also have the Retro Class 132, although this is as it looks today, Era 6, but these go way back. And then you have a Class 223, which is still this era, but in an old, the Delta Rail livery here. So the Class 132, which was technically would be a 232, but it was East German 132 at one time. And so that's how it's nomenclatured there. Let's keep going with these. So again, these are all part of the shop system. So some wagons, including they're really advertising some of the graffiti. I've noticed Pico's got a lot of offers for graffiti, but here's the first. But here are freight wagons that are only available through these shops. So some German various tarp and covered wagons, your Kesselwagen, your tankers, as we'd say. Completely new construction here. This diesel locomotive, a Vossloh Class 18. Very interesting looking loco here, the Vossloh Class 18. And somebody I was talking to recently said they were hoping that they had heard rumors that Class 18 was coming, and well, here it is. All right, so here are some other. Now this is their basic series. This is now their non-expert. So this is their next level down, which used to be called the collectors. Is expert collector's hobby, and I forget what they've changed the name to now. But yeah, so here we go. Quite a few locomotives. German Class 23, Class 435, the V75, Era 5. Going across here, Era 6 down below, a 345, another little shunter, an 080 shunter. The little military, that's the Bundeswehr from Era 5, so that would be, again, mid-80s to early 2000s, so that's a military shunter. And East German Class 118, which I can't really tell you much about, but that's your 70s to early 80s East German. We got a Class 219, which I know very little about. I know the 216s and the 218s. The 217s. 219, but this is from Era 5. I don't think any 219s came into the modern era, but I could be wrong. To the most modern era, I should say. All right, ST44 from Poland, 781 from the Czech Republic. Here's an M62 106. That is a Hungarian one, Era 4. So going back to here's a East German Class 231. Go back to that 132 we were showing you, which was also technically a diesel. So here's a diesel. And then the V160 with interesting little bit of signage on here, the gold signage there. But the V160 is kind of the progenitor of a lot of the the 216s, the 217s, 218s, even my Class 320, they all go back to the V160. So Era 3, West German. All right, more shunting trains in new liveries. Interesting that they've got two of them next to each other that look to be the same livery. But you've got German V100 and then the BR12 and then an Austrian 211 and then the Swiss 847, which I believe is also basically the same locomotive, different national nomenclature, and then a German 365 current era, and then there is a 245 diesel 245, which is a very common passenger hauler. I've got a Brava 245, but this is a Piko diesel. All right, Belgian class 1206, and again, very similar to the one next to it, which is the Italian class 145, and then you have a class 770 from the Czech Republic. The first two are Era 6, and then the Czech is Era 5, and then a couple of Polish SM31s, different liveries. One is Era 4, one is Era 5. So one from, say, 70s and one from the 80s into the 90s. Here we keep going. We've got Class 42 for Poland, Class 45 for Poland, one modern, most modern era, Era 6, which is anything from early 2000s to now. And then you've got Era 5 for an SU-45 and an SU-46. And where would it be without a couple of Noabs? So we have a German Noab, which is running now. It's the Altmark rail, so I believe this is a heritage rail train, although some countries still use Noabs as primary locomotives. But I think this is a private company that does heritage runs. I think Altmark does that. I'm trying to remember. Okay, anyhow, here's another basic variation. It's from Era 3, which is where these locomotives, but that is still a Noab for the Danish State Railway, so you haven't been left out, Jean Ricard. We finally got something from Denmark. All right, Piko is celebrating its 75th anniversary. And they're going to have a few surprise models actually for that Überraschungs design. Surprise design, a Class 131. Well, if you're telling it's a Class 131, it's kind of ruining the surprise, but you get the idea. It's going to be in a special livery. Here they're talking about their Day of the Open Doors. And then here, going back to the expert format, is a special train they're releasing, which is interesting because Märklin also announced they're releasing this. This is an Era 5. This was called the Metropolitan. And this, I don't know what's going on because they're even mentioning that this is, that Märklin and Piko are doing this together again. And that's why I was seeing it already announced from Märklin. I did not read that little red bit where they said I just now read that and go, oh, they're doing this. So it's going to be a 3-rail set that they're doing with Märklin. This is the Metropolitan, which was, it ran from Cologne to Hamburg. And it ran in the late 90s, early 2000s. So this is a little before my time period. But it is a very interesting and gorgeous train. And the funny thing is, until I saw this being released by Märklin, who announced it a couple of weeks ago, I didn't know this train existed. So I'm very, very interested. But it is going to command a very hefty price. But it is coming out April, May, June, or at least that's the scheduled release date. Sometime in that period. I bet it probably doesn't see the light of day till August. But we'll see. All right. So now we're moving on to rail cars. Triebzüge. So, and once again, Polish train collectors should be very happy. A lot of Polish stock this year. So we've got a Class 57 from Era 5 and a Class 57 in an Era 6 livery. Down below that, we've got the Stadler, the 2.6. in different liveries. Rocco and Piko have been releasing a ton of Stadlers. That's why they're not even calling the Form Variant. They're even though these are new liveries, there's nothing being added to it. It's just same train, different liveries. So you've got an Italian version and a German version for the company HLB. And then down below you have a Swiss and then an Austrian. So you've got 4 Stadler DMUs. Multiple units. A Triebzug is a multiple unit or rail car. All right, so here are some cars to go with some of your big trains or your some of your rail cars. So American in the expert group, they are releasing a Era 6 version of this car for the IC1, which I just completed my American IC1 set. Also, you can see they're releasing a Class 442 for the company Abellio. I've got a 442 in Deutsche Bahn Red, and that's all I want with that. And then down below at the bottom are some TEE Mercurs to go with those 2 different TEE locomotives they had, the one Swiss and the one 103 in German. But this is specifically the Mercur train. So then on this page, an entire set of Dutch passenger cars. So now EFO, I don't know if you do modern era and high. I know you do N scale, but for my Dutch friends and so forth on here, really gorgeous set of cars here. Era 6, it's my era. I'm going to have to get in the Netherlands and ride a train so I can get 1 or 2 of these really cool Dutch passenger car sets. All right, there are some more of the IC, but the big thing is with graffiti. And then from Era 5, they've got the Schlafwagen here, the Y-Wagen as it's called. And that is for the Ukraines. And I believe they're doing that as money making for the Ukraine as well. That some of the proceeds from that will be donated to the Ukrainian effort. The Mitropa, another famous passenger train from East Germany this time, the East German version. And then down below, an East German car set from Era 4. Very interesting because this looks very much like a Polish passenger car set from the 90s, early 2000s that I have seen. All right, so we've got some older Czech liveries. Technically, Era 4 would still be the Czech Republic because that would be before Czechoslovakia split. And then you've got an Era 5, which would be right after they split. Because, well, Era 5 would be right before to right after they split. So you got a couple of those here. And then some Era 6 cars from Germany, which I find interesting. The Wittenberger Kopf, the Wittenberg head. So that must be a local, regional part of the Deutsche Bahn that has. They are Nahverkehr, so it's very similar to some of the red Nahverkehr vehicles I have, or passenger cars I have. Again, some Era 1 and S-Bahn cars with graffiti. Another Polish Speisewagen meal car, a restaurant car, bistro car. And then this very interesting Era 5, I really wondered if Mark would like these, set of Polish state cars, passenger wagons. Very cool. And the 5th one up here. And then a double-decker, modern era, Doppelstock Sitzwagen. And then a couple of other Era 5 Polish passenger cars here. And then a couple of Swiss Era 4 cars, which I just find very, very interesting to look at. All right, and then now we'll get into Güterzug, which is freight cars. And here are the telescoping roof cars or telescoping side cars. They are offering them in many variations in sets, new sculpt, it says. So there's a German Era 6, a German Era 4, an Italian Era 4 for the Italian State Airways, a German Era 5, and an Austrian Era 5. So same cars, multiple countries across three countries, 3 eras. Okay, here's a whole bunch. So hopefully you see the Polish and you can see the eras here. Era 6, Era 6, Era 4. Austrian, Italian, German, Era 6. But they look to be weathered. And then down at the bottom, a Czech Großraum Güterwagen, large area, large space, goods car. A Belgian Era 5, and a Polish flatbed from Era 6. Some tankers, Kesselwagen, so we got another couple of Polish up here. A Dutch Chem Oil. I really like this particular one. It's Era 6, so it fits, but the very shiny RTI wagon. The Chemie Kesselwagen, chemical tanker. And then this flatbed Taschenwagen, which actually is pocket wagon. So a deep sitting one. And another one, private company, Hupak, with a couple of different cars. And then your standard, and again, I could see myself getting that one especially, but I could see myself getting any of these. So you got without cars and with cars, basically. All right, here is, they released a whole rake of these particular hoppers that you see there in the same color, but for German. And now it's done in a Belgian livery. And then you got some German Era 6, because it was Era 4 and Era 5. That was from last year. And you can still order them, but it's an expensive set. Well, now they're selling individual ones with Belgian livery. And then you got VTG from German. You've got the cement silo wagons, East German, and then Czech hoppers from Era 6. And then German Era 5 tanker, Swedish Era 4 tanker, Dutch Era 6 tanker, very cool. And then some more short hoppers. And again, I don't know specifically. Each of these has very specific names. And you have the self-loading and self-unloading wagons here. Era 5 for Austria, Era 4 for Denmark, double-decker or two-pack for German Era 6. I kind of like these. This would be just nice to have that color and get a rake of these, and then maybe something of another color. The silo wagon here, Era 6, that's a cool one. $70 for one. That's pricey. 70 euros for one. Now, that'll be marked down to about 50 to 55 euros at Lipa. Obviously, your pole wagon for hauling hauling trees and so forth. Era 6. You've got another Panzer, a tank transport there. And then your standard Schiebewagen wagon, Era 6 for Switzerland. More tarpaulins. This is standard. I've got several of these from Märklin, but you've got a Czech. It's a 2-car set, even though it's showing one. It's a 2-car set for Czech. Then a couple of German ones. I like this one, the Logserv. I do like that one. And then this green set. So actually, if I wanted to have a wagon of just these containers, I like all these cars. This is Italian, so Era 6. And then an Austrian Era 6. Now again, countries often will combine freight, or they will use something going back. So it wouldn't be completely irregular to have a couple of German private, couple of Deutsche Bahn, and then maybe even an Italian or Polish something in, mixed with an Austrian. And then there's a Belgian Schiebeplanenwagen. So I just like all of those. I think they're all very sharp. All right, so now we get into their hobby level. This is their cheapest level. And again, you look at the prices, and some will be relatively very cheap too. And really, it comes down to, are they digital or not? Okay, and so for example, here is a German Taurus, so class 183, sometimes 180. I think also in Germany 182 and 183 are the Taurus. Era 6, and basically that is the more expensive version. It is analog. It's analog, but it'll have a basic decoder in it for the 3-rail version. Here is an Italian Taurus, or I'm sorry, Hungarian. Let me correct myself there, Hungarian. Kind of cool. I've never been to Hungary, but Joyce and I would like to get over to Budapest. It just, there's some things politically going on in Hungary that we are not fond of. A Class 189, another classic worker. I really like that one. 130, but again, with AC, it's automatically going to have certain things. For AC, it's automatically going to have digital and some level of sound or basic functions. So it's going to be higher priced. So don't be confused. So usually if you see that little, let me put it up here. If you see this little symbol there, that is basically, it won't highlight it, sorry about that. But if you see the little symbol there, that is the DC, the 2-rail version. And then that little wavy line there, that is the symbol for my world, 3-rail. But again, it gets so confusing to people because, you know, we call it DC and AC. Most people think of DC as meaning analog, and then DCC is digital. But in the German Central European train world, DC is 2-rail and AC is 3-rail. And please don't start writing comments about, well, that's not quite accurate because AC is really DC and all that crap. It's what they call it. Just accept it. I have spoken. All right, so Class 189, and then a diesel locomotive. So again, look at the price points here. 115 euros, about $125. And again, at Lipa, that would be marked down. But these are their cheapest. And then a Class 20 from Austria as well. So 2016, and then an ER20, which again looks kind of like a Taurus to me, just a little bit. And then down below, an electric, the Honda Kop from the Netherlands. So a friend of those famous Kop trains from the Netherlands. All right, so some more locomotives. A modern class Trax. Stahlwerk from Steelworks. That really hits me. You know, it's a Trax, which could be a 101 or a 146, 147, but it looks diesel, so it might be a 245, to whatever. Okay, and so you can see the rest of these. And finally, notice Piko not doing a lot of steam this year. Normally, I would expect more steam from Piko, but a couple of relatively cheap steamers. Steamers are always the most expensive locomotives. But here's a Prussian, and this is digital. It will have digital, so you notice it's 159 and 220. But for digital, that's inexpensive. And this one, they're not releasing in 3-rail. So even if I wanted one, the Spanish, and the first Spanish loco we've had, and I don't think they did a Spanish one last year. So a Spanish steamer right here. You got a Spanish steamer right there. And now some cars. So we've got PKP, so more Polish. Again, the basic starter. Austrian from Era 4, the little short passenger cars. Another Czech. I really like this one, but it's the wrong era. I just like the livery on it. East German Era 4. That's actually kind of a sharp era. I don't always associate very colorful with the Era 3 and Era 4 Warsaw Pact countries liveries, but they clearly had some more colorful and cool looking things. That's just my own ignorance coming through. Era 5, Era 6, Hungarian passenger car, and then some more freight stuff. Swiss, Polish, Dutch, and Austrian. Various flatbeds and pole arms. And then all kinds. Look at these early eras. Era 1, so you're getting pre-World War One here. You've got, so Era 1 is anything pre-World War One into World War One. Era 2 is changing, beginning during World War One, up to World War Two and through World War Two. Era 3 is World War Two changes, and then post-war up to about the late 60s, early 70s. Era 4, 70s to mid 80s. Era 5, 80s into the late 90s, early 2000s. And then Era 6 is 2000 to now. All right, so just you can see the national flags by now. Swiss, German, kind of a cool high-board wagon, high-sided wagon there, and in a Era 5 pink version, and then very similar molding for the Czech Republic. Again, these are their cheaper ones, so they will just reuse moldings even if it's not quite accurate, and just color them and give them different liveries for different countries. And then just all kinds here. I'm already going almost an hour into this. So, you got Austrian, Dutch, Denmark, Czech Republic, Belgium, East German Piko, and Czech Republic and Danish again. You know, Era 5, Era 4, Era 5 on most of these. One was Era 3. Or no, a couple were Era 3. All right, and then starter sets. And if you want to get it started, this is a relatively, includes their A trains, but you got a Polish starter set, which has a class 42 double Stockwagen, and you get the locomotive, the 120 car, and then so you can see what you get here. You've got a Hungarian start set here, and then a Spanish start set. Again, first time I've seen a Spanish start set. And these are their very basic start sets. This is analog. You will not get these in 3-rail. These will be analog. All right, now they have their classic range. So these are some special offers. So you've got this Desiro, which is a DMU. This is this particular one is Denmark, so very sharp. And then I really like these. I almost hate to admit it. I really like this. This is Deutsches Reichsbahn from East Germany. And the split here, you can see at the bottom, it's actually split. It carries on from the bottom. 460 for that five car set, but those are really cool. I mean, and then you get these other cars to complete it and go with it as well. The luggage wagon, the through car, another luggage wagon, Era 4 again, and then an Era 3 luggage car instead. But I really like that whole set. I will not get it, but I like it. I think it's very cool. And here we go. Just another group, Polish, Austrian, Czech. A really cool Belgian set here, again from Era 3. Belgian. I really like this little Belgian set. Reminds me of a Märklin set released a little ways ago. And now more collector's editions, freight. So German, East German, self-unloading wagons. A couple of pot wagons. I forget what they're called in English, but you got one in Polish, one in German. The Säuretopfwagen, the chemical containers with a braking house added on. And it just goes on and on. This is their big releases. Just so many here. The best thing you could do is pause and look at it. Italian. So we got Swiss, Dutch, East German again. A lot of East German stuff this year. Well, they're celebrating 75 years, although Piko, Rocco as well. Rocco was actually an East German company, and Piko is the reformatted. There was a previous company, and then it was East German. Obviously, 1949, they were East German. So they're kind of celebrating that heritage with 75th anniversary. So a lot of Warsaw Bloc, if you want to get right down to it. A lot of Czech, Hungarian, East German, Polish. I think they're celebrating a lot of the old Warsaw Bloc stuff there. But Italy and more. We got Polish, Belgian, East German, Belgian, Italian. Just look at these. It just goes on and on and on. We're almost to the end here, but there's so many, and I'm now just clicking fast through it again. So, Koolwagen, a refrigerator car. Pivo, a Polish. A couple of Dutch. So again, by now, you should recognize the flags and the eras. The EP3 in German era is Epoche. I could have waited for the English version, but I thought I'd get this out while we're at it. Just a lot of, the colors are vibrant. And of course, down at the bottom here, the Piko 2024, the 75th anniversary tanker car. I might buy that just for the hell of it. All right, so that was a look at the Piko 2024 catalog. New items 2024. Piko is by far the biggest catalog. I think they produce more stock. There's no way I could do it short. So anyhow, I don't know how many of you are going to actually watch all of this, but you'll probably skim through and see some sections. But I hope you enjoyed a look at what Piko's offering new in 2024. And because this is almost an hour, I'm going to say, I'll be St. Shoes and happy trains. Take care, everybody.